The truck. It's truck tech time. I am on the dyno with 5.3 liter. Well, right now, technically, I guess I'm sitting in my truck talking to you good folks. But I finished testing the M90 supercharger. Last time we ran it in semi-ported. It dawned on me that it wasn't unported. It was still kind of ported the last time we did it. We still had the entry, and the guys from Mahovitz had milled out the inlet side, I think, if I remember right. I need to go back and look and see exactly how we ran it. I think I did some minor porting. No, we did run it like that because Mahovitz did some, they put it in there in the Haas and milled it out, and then I just went in and kind of hand finished it, and it did good, but I sent it out to the guys from Jokerz, and they actually ported it. By that I mean they ported the entry into the rotors, which is kind of the important part. It's good to have a big entry. In fact, I would really like to have a 4-inch entry on this thing, or a big oval. I think it just needs more air to get in. I tried, you'll see, I tried a really cool thing. Dumb, but cool. Where we ran it without a throttle body, just a big radius entry and stuff, and a 4-inch radius entry. So that was kind of exciting. But the guys from Jokerz ported that stuff that we did, then ported the entry into the rotors, then ported the exit out of the rotors, and then that's what we ran. I ran it in the same configuration that we did last time with the TIC air-to-water intercooler, and that kept, I think we were running 140 kPa, and I think it was dropping down to 136 or so. We were running, charge temp was only in the 80s, I think. It was pretty low. I didn't monitor the air coming out of the blower, just coming out of going into the common manifold. For a while there, I struggled a little bit with turns out that it was one of the bolt holes did not have a bolt in it, and so it was like the bubbler test on accident again. So it had a boost leak, and I was wondering, I mean, it's making pretty good power, but it seemed like the boost was a lot lower than before, and I thought, why would the ported blower reduce the boost? If anything, it should increase the boost, or at least it should be making more power than I thought it was. So after I took the blower off, I looked in there. I'm like, oh yeah, because what had happened is I'd put a stud in there, and I'd screwed the stud in. The stud wasn't long enough, but it was there basically just to cover the hole, just to fill the hole, and it helped guide the blower when I set the blower on too. So that worked out good. But then the stud, I don't know, maybe during a backfire or something, during vibration probably wiggled itself out, although you would think that with the weight of it, that if it was going to wiggle itself, that it would wiggle itself down and then just hit the intercooler core and stop. That's kind of what I was thinking. There wasn't really room, unless they did a bunch of machining on the blower, to put a nut on there, and the problem is they didn't have a long enough bolt to go all the way from the top. So after I took the blower off, I'm like, oh yeah, well there's where some of the boost is going. Not a lot, you know, probably like a pound or something, 6 or 7 tenths, you know. But after I found that, I was happy, because then we knew that it would make more power. And early on, when I first started testing, it was making good power, but then I could never get back to that number. I'm like, well, I'm trying all these things. I'm trying different headers. I'm, you know, trying tuning, trying more fuel, trying less fuel, trying a little bit more timing, all of that stuff. And I'm like, yeah, this shouldn't be doing this. There's something going on here. And it should have dawned on me, and it eventually did, that, hey, look, the thing is idling high. Well, if it's idling high and the boost is down, what is the only sensible conclusion there? Well, you have a boost leak. You have a vacuum leak, and you have a boost leak. So after figuring that out, then I was able to run it and get it in the right configuration, and finally do the tuning on it and make all that work, and it did great. It on the second to the last pull, to give you guys an idea, I posted this on Facebook. On the second to the last pull, it made 649.9 horsepower. So I'm like, that's 650, but only if I round up. So I played with it a little bit, added a half a degree, took away a little bit of fuel, and then it made let the blower cool off a little bit, and then it ended up making 652. So it did good. 650 horsepower from an M90, and that's for all of the guys that I get constant, and I'm responsible for part of this. So I get constant comments from people on Facebook or Instagram, or wherever. Oh, that blower's too small. That won't even feed a V8. I'm like, well, it actually will. We've made over 600 horsepower, and then one guy's comment was, well, yeah, you put it on a 650 horsepower motor, and then it made 600. I'm like, no. The blower will support that amount of power. Obviously, if it is doing that, even if you put it on a 650 horsepower motor and it made 650 horsepower, that means the blower can support that. Because, and actually it means it's making more than that, because there's losses associated with driving that supercharger. So it has that airflow potential. And now we know that it is actually a 650 horsepower motor. I wasn't able to put the ATI damper on. Right now it's got a little bit too much press fit, so I would need to have that honed. And honestly, I don't know that there's time for me to do a Super Richie, a DIY hone on it to get that on there. It would be cool. That would give us more blower speed. But I think we're getting up near the limit of what we can reasonably expect from this thing. And the other cool thing is I pinned the crank. So we were running the truck damper. I pinned the damper on it, and that's working good. No issues with that. Once we did that, that was for most of its life on that on that poor motor. And I'm sure I've scuffed the crank up more than I want it to be. So we'll have to fix that. But yeah, 650 horsepower. I mean, that's good power. And that's a good gain from the porting, considering the fact that we only made 615 before that. So the porting obviously worthwhile, particularly when you're, up at or near the limit of the flow potential of the blower, without the porting. If you're only running, if you're only spinning the blower at half speed or 3/4 speed, and you have it on a kind of a stock motor, there's really no need to do that. I wouldn't recommend that any more than I would recommend you on a guy that has an LS. If he's trying to make 700 horsepower, I wouldn't recommend, with a turbo, I wouldn't recommend that you port the heads. It's just not necessary. You can get what you need to get without that. But on this application, we needed the extra power, we needed the extra flow, and porting it did a good job. So big thumbs up to the guys at Jokerz, and big thumbs up to the guys also at Tick for the intercooler. Obviously that kept things, we could just keep running and running and running. And I just ran it on pump E85. No idea really what the rating is, because I don't test any of that stuff. It's just pump E85. And really what we're doing with 21 degrees or so of timing and 137 kPa. It's really, and an intercooler, it's like ultra safe. It's all working really, really well. So that part of it's done. Now after the live feed, what I'll do is I'll go in and we will put the start doing some other intake manifold tests, and that will be good. It will be nice to run some testing, some NA testing. But the cool thing is, and even with the M90, I ran it up pretty far. I ran it up at 7,200, I think. Because that's the other thing I did. I'm trying to wiggle like a half a degree and another 0.2 of air fuel, and then also 200 RPM, because it's got to go over the 650 horsepower deal. So you got to do that. So you make it so the last run is definitely going to do it, because there's no more of that 649 with a 9. That's not acceptable. But that's, I think with me that happens more often than not. Is it? Yeah, 650 would be a nice number. Nope, you get a 649, and then we throw in a 9 at the end after the decimal point. Just to really anger you. But that's all part of the deal. I mean, 649.9 is that 650. But I wanted it to show 650. The other thing that happens, and it probably did on that run where it was 649.9, it probably showed 650. But because of the way that the dyno grabs the numbers, that a lot of times you'll see the number flash up on the screen, but when it's grabbing numbers every 100 RPM, there might have been one in between those two, but the dyno didn't grab that. So you saw it, and then it doesn't appear on the printout. You're like, really? Come on, dude. Come on, hook me up with a 650. But that's how that's how you learn. I tried a bunch of different a couple of different header sets on it. I ran the muffler and so we did a bunch of stuff. We ran NA. Oh, excuse me. I think that the blower added more than 100 horsepower, so it did good. So it was adding, I don't know, what's that, 20 horsepower per pound or something, which is pretty good at given the size of the blower and given where we were starting with in terms of power output. So that did very well. That's with that 5.3 has the trick flow 220 heads, the ass cast ones, but they're no longer ass cast. Jokerz, it was 100, the maximum reading was 140 kPa, but it would actually drop slightly during the run down to like 135 or 136 kPa. It's about 5.5 pounds, I think, something like that. It's not a lot, but that's that's what the blower would do. That's what it'll support on a pretty healthy 5.3, because it had the trick flow. It had the trick flow ASCAS 220s that were no longer ASCAS. The guys from Brian Tooley Racing ported them, and they flow a ton. We had a pretty big camshaft in it. We had that Stage 4 LS3 cam, and we had a Holley high ram, and then the intercooler on it, and big step headers on it. I tried the step headers, and I tried the 1 7/8 headers with the extensions and with mufflers, and excuse me, all that stuff. Just trying to find stuff. Turns out the thing that I was looking for was actually a leak, a boost leak, and you can't tune around that, and you can't you can't try changing parts around that. You got to fix the leak first, and then the boost makes a difference. But cool testing again. So M90 stuff, way to go. I got a broken glove there. Let's see what you guys got going on. M90's in the house. Turbo Sentra. Mac. DMC. Run. DMC. Just cut off the throttle body flange yet? Yeah, there's no factory throttle body. That was cut off a long time ago. It was cut, and we welded on a 3.5-inch piece of aluminum tubing, and then went in and milled out the center of it. Cam guy. Yep, that's me. Just sent you an email about cams. Pistol Pete Maravich. The drive shaft is 2 inches shorter. I guess I need a custom one. Getaway Jokerz, what's going on, man? 650 is good. What do the ITs look like when running that much? There wasn't very much boost. There was only 5.5 pounds because we had such a good NA motor. So the air temperature was only like, it was in the 80s. It was in the mid to high 80s, like 86 or 87. Yeah, it was intercooled. But it wouldn't make any difference if it's not intercooled, because let's say that we dropped a 0.5 pound or something through the intercooler. The air temperature coming out of the blower is not going to be very hot. What diameter did the Jokerz open the blower to? I don't know. What measurement are you looking for? I don't know where you want that number at, where you want that size. Marks, I still don't understand how I measure 6 volts for my injector plugs, but the OEM Silverado ECU is running my 70s CB450. Not super well yet, but it's getting there. Is the injector supposed to have 6 volts? It's not 12 or 5? Those are more normal. Yeah, Jokerz, it did good, man. So now we're going to run the fast manifold, hopefully, and as long as everything works, sometimes hooking the fuel rails up and the right size injector and all that stuff, sometimes that becomes a little more problematic, but we'll see. Hopefully, because it's Sunday, so it's hard to go get anything if I need supplies, if I've got to solve a problem. So I need to go and see if I can, I'm going to hook these intake manifolds up, and, hopefully everything will work out good. I know you like my glove. Probably time for a new one of those. These ones actually work fairly well, but if you snag them on something like the corner of the blower, the wire, all that stuff, because, I got a Super Richie drive-by wire going on. That's all working good. Man, that poor 5.3 has got a lot of holes on it. It had 500 before. It's probably got 600 on it now. It's got a ton. What brand are the? I don't know. These are latex or something. I'll have to go and look inside. I think if it's not already your plan, you should run 100 millimeter 4-inch flange off the blower and see if there's any gains. Yeah, we'd have to make the opening that big, but the throttle body that we ran was a 102, but it's just bigger than the opening that I have on there. Tiger grip, yeah, I don't know if these are that or not. These are just something I got from the local auto parts store, I think. Yeah, I mean, at 650, I wouldn't run a 92 millimeter throttle body on a 650 horsepower LS. So this thing probably could use a bigger one. But the limitation is definitely in that piece, because when you see what I did on the Super Richie no blade throttle body, when you see that, you'll realize that since it didn't gain any power, what's the most horsepower you've made from the 5.3? NA or boosted? So we offer a CNC program. I don't know. So we'll see if you guys get calls for it. I don't know that a lot of guys would be doing the M90. Maybe they would. It's a pretty good gain, but you saw the modifications to this blower. It's not just doing a porting program and then leaving the stock throttle body on there. They definitely need a much bigger throttle body on there. But maybe you could go in and I don't know how much you could. I don't know if you could, I don't know if there's enough meat in the stock throttle body flange area, because we just cut it off. I don't know if there's enough meat there to make a really big opening. I don't know how big you could get it. Pete, is which one a good cam? If it's one of the ones that you're ordering for me, then yes, they're both good. And really, all of the used ones that I have are good too. That we have, I mean, we have dyno results on all that stuff. And we know that it works. Verified performance. Oh, there we go. Stage 2, 5.3 truck, 212, 218, 600. Is that a stage 2? That's a stage 2 truck cam? Yeah, but it's not as good as the low buck truck that I have. It doesn't make as much power, or the regular truck Norris, or the or that 219 cam. So I don't know what you're trying to do with it. TSP stage 2. Yeah, the one that I have makes more power than that. And both of them do. How much power did the NA test motor make? 5. It made pretty good. It made like 530 or something. The blower was 100 or so horsepower over that. Which is good, and this was just an exercise to see how much power that blower could support. And there's obviously more there, but some more. But now I think a 4-inch entry is probably necessary. What would happen if we're coming up to where that's becoming more and more restrictive? We can spin the blower faster, and what we'll end up doing is getting more of a gain down low and then less of a gain at the top. That's pretty common. We see that a lot on throttle body sizing. Scott, what's going on? Happy Easter, everyone. I don't think you could CNC an M90 to do the big throttle body. Bandsaw about 2 or 3 inches behind the throttle flange, weld on a pipe and a bit of porting. That's what we did on this one. It's in my email. Let me know you want. Yeah, the nice thing about the cam that I have is that it will have some, it'll have an idle. He'll notice it. It'll be good. And if he wants more and wants more power, the 219 cam will work. So that's a subjective thing. I myself would pick the low buck truck. The low buck. I don't have a supercharger to port, but I put the 18-volt battery swap kit on my kid's Power Wheel. Yeah, I know. I put a Kitty Bell boosted pump on my kid's Power Wheel back in the day when he was young, and it made a big difference. He loved it because he could adjust the knob on the power level. But it was like because of those hard tires, it was like a crazy drift machine, man. He was he was tearing it up. It was awesome. You'll be putting beehives on the 799s. Yeah, anything like the low buck truck is 550, and then the 219 cam is 585. So any of those 600 lift beehive springs will work. This little blower getting busy. It's 7,200. Where's Boost Novice at? He needs to do some calculations to see how fast we're spinning this thing. I need my phone to do that. It's pretty fast. And also I used, because I didn't have any of the supercharger oil, I just used gear oil in there. I used it before on the other test. It's fine. Yeah, Scott, that's what we're talking about. I mean, I made another run after a couple of adjustments. It made 652, so it did the number, but that was the second to the last pull. Was 649 with a 9. And maybe another 9 after that. I don't know. Like, that's the way that the dyno treats me. That's okay. Keeps you on your toes. That's how we learn stuff. That's how we learn to get better. I tried a big 4-inch radius air horn on it and stuff. You know, just stuff. Just looking for stuff. No more Moats quarter horse. So I just go with an FMU and a did you say a chip? And a burn chip. If you can put bigger injectors in it, you can do that. There's no need to run an FMU. But the FMU that we ran that comes on the Kenny Bell kit worked good. Just let me know when you can. I explained it all in my email. Okay. I need to watch the video. I missed all the details of the build. On which build? I don't have that video up. I mean, I have a whole bunch of videos up that go step by step on what we've done. I mean, the L33 has been through lots of stuff. This poor engine needs an oil change, especially with that. After all the E85, it definitely needs an oil change. Stuff gets pretty contaminated. I do really like those BTR valve covers, though. It makes life so much easier. Not have to take the coil packs off. It's just one little thing, but it makes a big difference. When we ran the blower, I did the same way we did last time for the test. We bypassed the alternator and the power steering on it. Be kind to your LS and change the oil. I agree. Mine lets me know the oil pressure starts getting low if I let it stay in there for too long. I think it gets fuel contaminated. I'm going to go, as soon as I get off the live feed, I'm going to go change the battery in this thing so that I know what's going to happen for tomorrow night. Also, I would sure like to get this thing to stop. I'd get this knock sensor thing fixed, which I thought was a ground wire, but I think I've checked the grounds, except for the major one. like to get this thing working so it had some timing in it. Right now, it won't even spin the tires, even in the rain. It's terrible. It's not good. Dual sync distributor, in case you want to run sequential injection. Not mandatory, but Turbo 3800 Big Bang, like right now while I'm sitting here doing a live feed. You want to see that? So thought somebody was attacking. Right now would be good. So what do you guys think? Will the carbon PTR manifold, the adjustable one, make more power than the Holley? Dual 50mm throttle bodies or one single 75? On what are you putting the what? How do you have the choice of two throttle bodies versus one? What is that on? Well, 250s is 100, right? If only an area worked like that. Brandon, I'll have more videos coming up. Oh yeah, that's right. They did have dual throttle bodies on that, huh? Isn't the intake though? Isn't that truck intake manifold set up with a kind of an oval opening for those dual throttle bodies? Can you fit a single one on that? The crank pulley that's on there is a truck crank pulley. It's a factory truck one. And it's a 2.6 blower pulley. I think it was 2.3 was the drive ratio. It's 2.6 and 2.6 is 5.2. Actually, it's a lot more than that. 2.6 or 2.7. Australia, what's going on? Welcome from the boys down under. Thanks for all your help. Just picked up some rec port heads for my 408. You'll like those. Those work well. Those will pick up good power. Is the Holley mid-rise any better than a stock truck intake manifold? I wanted to say no, but I think I just looked this up the other day and was kind of surprised. I don't know. I don't know which way it is now. I can't remember. And about oval opening, I was tossing around the idea of fix Edelbrock RPM swap, but I can't find a good flow number on the truck intake. Do they still run Vicky Mart in Melbourne, Australia? Is it worth the price? I wouldn't pick the Holley mid-rise. I would pick something else. A fast is a way better manifold. And then if you want to go to a shorter runner thing, then if it will fit, then a high ram. Or you know what else is good is the Edelbrock ProFlow. Although I'd heard that they were kind of harder to find though. The stock crank pulley is 7.5. I'll measure it. I think it is. I didn't change the battery because I didn't get done till about 1 o'clock last night. So I wasn't enthusiastic about changing the battery. I'm going to do that now and I'll know tomorrow morning. These more about the looks. Yeah, I agree. A truck manifold's not good looking, and the aftermarket aluminum ones are much better. They got more of a visual statement. And on the lids, just like with the high ram, they've got a 92 version and a 102. Oh, well, it gets hard. Coming down off all the dyno work. Nashville. Yeah, Scott, I agree. And I even ran it in different configurations. I ran it as a dual 4-barrel manifold and twin 4150s. Corn, the blower temperature is not going to be anywhere near 350 degrees. There's no way the intercooler brings 350 degrees down to 85. The temperature is going to be very low. The people that are associating with blower speed with temperature, you need to associate boost. If it was 20,000 RPM and 20 pounds of boost, then it's going to be really hot. But if it's 20,000 RPM and 5 pounds of boost, it's not going to be very hot. Did I get any pizza? No, I haven't. Oh, no, I did. I normally we get Pizza Pirate, but we didn't get Pizza Pirate this time. Troy actually went to Costco to get some stuff for the guys at West Tech and grabbed pizzas there and brought them back and surprised everybody. $92 would probably be better. He's not racing it. What about running a spider style dual plane intake manifold? I don't know what you mean by spider style, like a dual plane. The porting did help. Yeah, it made 650. It made over 650. Sorry, was for some reason thinking it had a very small pulley on it. It does. It has a very small pulley on it. It has a 2.6-inch pulley, but the blower is just flowing air. It's not creating boost. It only made 5.5 pounds because the NA motor is using all of the air that the blower can push. Almost all of it. There's only 5 pounds or 5.5 pounds of back pressure. So you don't get, think about if you were running just 5.5 pounds on something else. How much of a temperature rise would you get? Not very much. Same thing here. Even though the blower speed is much faster, it's still only 5.5 pounds. And most of the heat that you get from supercharging or turbocharging comes from that compression. Compression causes heat. So the more compression you have, the hotter the air. So it's not strictly, or it's even less of the speed of the blower. Should the 799s be ported or just polish them up? Well, I don't know how much power you're trying to make. Ported 79s, properly ported 799s flow 60 or 70 CFM more than a stock set does. And they'll support over 600 horsepower. So if you want that and want to port them and can do that, I mean, that's a professional job, but not a DIY kind of thing. But the ported ones will help. This one is a 5.3. It's the L33. The first race was 15 miles an hour. I know they used to compete with horses back in the day. Does anyone have any experience with fuel tech? Is it worth the price compared to other EFI systems? I've never used it. The M90 is almost as efficient as a turbo? I don't know how you would get that. 7,200 on the engine and 2.6 blower pulley. Yeah, and a truck crank pulley. Steve Morris had a blower let go. I did see that. The 5.3 made more than 500 NA. It made 530 or 540 or something. On the compressor map, it does. I know that it obviously doesn't make as much power because it has parasitic loss. And I would like to look at charge temperatures coming out of an M90 that would be comparable to a turbo at that same boost level. Reporting Gen 3 or Gen 5. The one that I ran today was a Gen 5. I also have Gen 3 stuff. A 2.6 pulley on my 3800 is about 15 psi with porting and intercooling. But on a 5.3, I'm just mathing. Yeah, it's 15 psi because your NA motor is not making very much power. Your NA motor is making a good... what does it make? 200 less than this one? It's quite a bit, probably. If this makes 530 or 540, I think unless you have really good ported heads and a cam, I think that an NA 3800 is going to be in the 300s. Yeah, this added a little over 100 horsepower. What porting can be done on the Gen 5? Lots of stuff. I mean, the porting a Gen 5 is just like porting a Gen 3. You make the entry a lot bigger. You shape the entry going into the rotors. You port the discharge side. The guys from Jokerz did this one. They did a good job. And we had already done a bunch of stuff to it before I gave it to them, because I just wanted to make the entry bigger, basically. And I cut off the throttle body flange and welded a 3.5-inch tubing. Now I wish I would have gone to 4. Unhook the intake hose on a turbo. They still make lots of heat, so they're making pressure just getting air through the housing. But the discharge air coming out of a turbo versus the discharge air coming out of a supercharger at the same boost level, the air temp coming out of the turbo is going to be less. And if you just free spin a turbo, you're saying that the air coming out of it will be hot because it has internal compression. A twin screw's like that. Are throttle body spacers worth it? No. Let me know in the email. Yeah, the price is the price is $169 shipped. Double overhead cam versus overhead valve, is it worth much more power? Well, any other than classes that prohibit it, every form of professional motorsports is trying to make lots of power, especially out of, if it's displacement limited, uses an overhead cam deal, 4-valve head. But there's no strict percentages of stuff because it varies greatly between different specific combinations. And then if you put a twin cam head on something that didn't have that, did you put a good one on there? What does your 4-valve head flow versus what is your 2-valve head flow? What's the average airflow? I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. Not just peak flow. That's the one that most people normally talk about. It's just like talking about, like talking about peak horsepower. If we look at a dyno graph or something, oh yeah, this thing made 650, like we were talking about. But what else did it do? Where else did it make power at? I think this thing made 545 or so foot-pounds of torque. This one was not run with a carburetor. The one that I ran with a carburetor, I'm thinking it was a Gen 2 or a Series 3, a Gen 3, but I can't remember now. It was just one that I had laying around. Mid-lift numbers on 4-valve heads are pretty good. Yeah, they are. That's why you got to talk about the average flow, just like you got to talk about average power, because when you're accelerating a vehicle, the peak power just comes and goes. It's what you did to get there, just like airflow. As the Engine Masters guys found out when they allowed modular Fords in there, 4-valve motors do pretty good, have a pretty high specific output. and a good average power output. Especially if you can get good heads. M90 on the 2.2, it obviously will support a lot of power. Yep, probably more than we would want to run with an M90 on there. Is supported M90 going to use less power at the same horsepower compared to a bigger supercharger? I don't know. We'd have to put those on the blower dyno to really find out. Talked to a guy at Advanced Auto Parts about his 5-cylinder in his Colorado. He said that a used 5-cylinder is hard to find and they're very expensive. Really? I see a lot of those Atlas motors in the wrecking yards, but I didn't look specifically to see if they were the 5-cylinder versions or if they're all 4200s or a 4-cylinder version. 4 cylinders for the win, yo. Previously had an S10 with an M90 on it. Cool. Oh, with a 4.3. Inlet restriction is huge on positive displacement blowers. Yep. Is there a common independent suspension differential that would be good for a high horsepower and torque? The Iron Explorer 8.8 center section, the Corvette, the Cobra one. Was there a T-Bird center section too that was IRS? I can't remember, but I know those are guys who put power through those. Happy Easter, everyone. Thunderbird had the 8.8. That's what I thought. I know it had that, but for some reason I'm thinking that there was a maybe the Explorer is the one that I'm thinking of. Oh, Cobras, yeah. The aluminum versions, those aluminum center sections are hard to find. That's why people go with the Explorer one, because it's like that, just an iron version. Yep. And did they use that just on the 0304, or did they use that on previous Cobras too? Explorer has an IRS also. Pretty sure the Lincoln Mark 8 had an IRS. Lincoln's had IRSs. Okay. The new Mustang Super 8.8 is cool. Coolio Brulio. Think about how much shorter 4-valve heads can be for the same RPM range. And you've cured valve train issues with 4-valve motors, with overhead cam motors, as long as you put the right kinds of cams in it. You don't even have to put a short stroke in it. Kenny Detweiler acts like 2,500 horsepower from a 256 cubic inch small block at just another day. Yeah, Kenny knows how to make power. There's no doubt about that. He's not afraid to boost. Yeah, it looks like you have a lot of choices for if you want to put an IRS on there. Independent rear suspension. Did the Super Coupe T-Birds? I don't know. Maybe that's what I was thinking. Somebody look that up. You have a chance to look into the water-cooled blower case? It's for a big block marine application, but I still don't know if it's what the benefit is. Anybody else see the Orcilla 46 short video with the two heads off, and the valves about 8 inches in diameter? That's a lot. Kind of wish they'd make a double overhead cam 4 valve and bigger displacements. Isn't that what they did with the new Corvette? 18-inch bore diameter. That's nice. I like a bore that you can. I want one that you can walk into. That one came off of a boat. Sean, it made 652. But not before it made 649.9. Then I had to rerun it. This is a drinking channel. You're free to do whatever you want, man. Yes, the Super Coupe had IRS. Thank you. "18-inch bore diameter, maximum mileage." Yeah, but what was the stroke? Was it a short stroke though? Because I want my 18-inch bore motor to rev so it could take advantage of all that head flow that I have. Let's see here. Some information from John. 99 to 04 Cobras were IRS. 03, 04 Cobras were 31 spline, 28 spline for the others. I believe the other Mark 8s Cobras only got aluminum housings. I've been having a lot of questions. This is my very first LS build. I'm a Ford guy and used to doing all Coyote things. Hey, you've come to the right place for questions. The new Corvette is a 4-valve motor, and it's a I think it shares the small block bore spacing on it. Have you tried titanium rods before? Yeah, I've owned a couple of motors that had titanium rods. The NSX did, and I'm not sure if the Ferrari did. The stroke was 23 inches. Oh, see, that's a stroker motor. So it's 18 by 23. That's pretty good size. That's getting with the program. Are the 300 inline 6 aftermarket intakes like the Offenhauser C-Series somewhat flawed in most people's application on account of the intake runner length? I don't know what you mean by that. Looks like an unrealistic RPM to take advantage of 300. Are you thinking that they're too long or they're too short? What do you think the problem is? Most of those 300s are very low RPM applications. I mean, look at a factory 300. If you're talking about the 300-inch Ford or the 300-inch Ford, they have really, really long, like the EFI one. They have really, really long runners. For some godforsaken reason, the manual's got the Mazda transmission from the Ranger instead of the T5. So if you abuse them, they would break. Richard, do you think my Summit 232, 248 cam is too big for an otherwise stock 6.4 Hemi? Wanted to use it as a street strip car, a tall single plane, and carburetor. If you put a single plane and that camshaft in there, it's going to be pretty soft down low. I don't know what gearing you have that might help that, but I mean, the runners look too short for people to take advantage of. EFI runners are far longer. Okay. My guess is that when they made those manifolds, that Clifford or Aussie Speed or whoever the guys are making them, they probably made them for the carbureted applications. And so they're probably better than the factory carbureted stuff, I would think. but they're probably not going to do what the really long run or EFI stuff does, I think. The Z06 has double overcam and flat plane crank, less displacement without a supercharger. It makes 20 horsepower more than the C7 Z06. Yeah, it's a good motor. They threw everything that they had at it. What was the formula for fuel injector sizing? Fuel flow of the injector of one injector times 16 for a V8. That gives you the NA potential power output. Do they use titanium rods only in high RPM motors? That's where you normally see them. And also expensive high RPM motors. 25,000 horsepower for that? That's nice, Dan. Ford SVT, let's see. We could use the Mustang transmission behind the supercharged 3.8. Ford executives use the Ranger use the Ranger transmission. It'll be funny. It'll really make people mad. So they're sitting up in their office. Maybe they're just doing a drinking game or something. Building a 408 with 823 heads and a 219 cam. Wanted to run twin GT45 turbos. Trying to run 1,000 horsepower in E85 with a softer street tune for 93. That all will be fine. It'll easily make that power. Plastic gauge the bearings. You have to plastic bag the bearings. The engineers behind the Aztec. Yeah, that was not good. That was not very pretty. I'm not a big fan of the Tesla truck either. Really? You're just gonna drive by and splash me like that? That's how you do it? Man. Disrespect. Is it a single turbo, Dan? It's bigger than Christmas. That's a lot. Oh, so Sean, you think that truck should be parked next to a DeLorean? We look at home, right? One giant turbo. He used the blade from a windmill. Put a turbo T5 in a 90 Ranger. Just had to have a hydraulic line made for the throttle bearing. Cool. So how do you guys think that that LSX HR and the Carbon PTR are going to compare to the Hiram? Are they going to make the same kind of power? Let me know. Let me know your thoughts. Start getting a little punchy. You're here for 16, 18 hours a day by yourself. Nobody wants to talk to me. Except for you guys. That's why I come here, do the live feeds. You work on Teslas. Oh, so if you have any questions. I've driven one and I've ridden in one, and I mean the acceleration's impressive. There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt about the torque offered by an electric motor. It seems GM did very well with their intake design. Aftermarket doesn't seem to have anything that much better. On which car is that, Bob? Or which engine family is that? Hopefully the carbon intake makes more How many drive units do you put in Teslas? I saw a thumbnail and never looked at the video. That's a lot. Oh yeah, the LS3 and the factory LS3 intake mount's really good. You can make lots more power at the top, but you always sacrifice stuff. The red line's 100 RPM, 102. I know he does a flex. Yeah, triple digits. What's up? Triple digit RPM. It's pretty good for a stroker, you know. You got to de-stroke it to get those RPMs up. Oh, 600 RPM. Okay, that makes more sense. 100 RPM seems like an idle speed, right? Yeah, that's a lot of power. How are they going to measure that? Are they calculating it off something? While I was on the dyno, one of the fuel lines decided that it didn't want to hold all of its fuel anymore. It got tired of that. Most of the electric cars only win in acceleration for now. In a track, it would be dominated with its very high weight. What's a Tesla Plaid run? Does a Tesla Plaid run 9s? Because if it runs 9s, that's pretty fast. It's pretty quick. They're probably not very fast. It does do 9s. I thought it did. Is it? And it's all-wheel drive, right? I mean, doesn't it have motors on all of the tires? All else equal, what timing changes would you expect going to 12,000 RPM valve train? From average OEM car truck stuff? I think you're going to need more timing. $877 seems to be the quickest without mods. That's really fast. I don't know how you argue with that. No, not at idle, Mark. I mean, because you're not running that RPM at idle. The timer requirements increase with engine speed. It's a straight line, not a track. Yeah, and if I like the guys are pushing the envelope in these things. I think that this EV thing is dumb. We don't have a power grid for it, and they, just everything's bad about it. The performance is good from a performance standpoint, but they cost a lot. The battery stuff is kind of a problem. Do you have any details on the green Dodge truck you saw with the turbo blow-through carb at MPMC? I don't know specifically. I know how to get a hold of the guy, I think. Most Teslas won't make 3 laps at Laguna Seca. If electric cars had 5 or 6 speed, or maybe even a 10-speed forward transmission, would they have better economy and better acceleration? New streetcar class, 300-mile drive before race. E-bikes and scooters are really awesome. I agree with that. I mean, I still ride my GoPed, but I got to fix the battery. I got to fix the carburetor on it because it doesn't really want to do full throttle. I don't think I'm getting enough fuel. But I liked electric scooters. I like cruising around on those. Like, you ever take it off any sweet jumps? Sean, you should just want him to go for a ride in a Tesla Plaid. That has all the low-speed torque. That has all the torques. Or Cummins turbo diesel too. That has all the low-speed power. Not quite as low as an electric motor, but but pretty good. Is lithium superior to magnesium? You mean on the elemental chart? Do you mean taste? What do you mean? Most tuning I've ever done, mixture screws on carbs and setting points to factory specs. So I have a small curve to get over. Well, start low and then work your way up. But do you have a way to measure anything? I mean, can you? It's not going on a dyno or anything, right? Mohammed, I haven't changed the battery in the truck yet. That's going to happen in just a little bit. In fact, 1 or 2 minutes ago. This is the 1 or 2 minute warning because I've got to go put the battery in so that I can get back to intake testing now. Done with all the boost. That's kind of sad a little bit. I like running the blower. I need a timing light, a wideband. A wideband, definitely. Wasn't there somebody that LS swapped to Tesla? I'm sure somebody had to have done it. Precision rates turbos with power it makes on a 2JZ engine. So that's like an optimized combination. I run the 6870. It says it's 1100 wheel horsepower. I made 680 with it on my 3800. Thinking about going with a 6466. Yeah, the efficiency of a 2JZ 4-valve motor and the sizing compared to a 3800, pretty big difference. That's right, some sweet jumps, huh? All right, Scott, we'll see you, man. There's an LS Tesla at SEMA. Okay, cool. And on that note, it is time to go. See what I mean? An hour goes by so fast when you're hanging out on Easter. I don't even have any Easter eggs. When you're hanging out with people talking car stuff. But back to the dyno for me, and I will see you guys all tomorrow.